Hello and welcome to episode 35 of the Idiot Book Nook Book Club podcast. My name is Blazewing and my pronouns are she, her, and they, them.
My name is the Reading Dragon and my pronouns are she, her.
Hi. My name's Lady Punnet and my pronouns are primarily she, her. Sometimes they, them. And we have super special guest, Nugget, who's actually staying in frame for longer than 2 seconds. You guys on the podcast cannot see him, but he is a very distinguished gentleman cat.
He supervised the cat.
He is our supervisor. He is making sure we stay on task.
Yep.
He is a very distinguished tabby.
Yep. If you would like to follow us on social media, you can do so at linktr.ee/idiotbooknook, where you will find the links for myself, the Reading Dragon, and Lady Punnet. You will also find a link to our website, and you will find links to all of the podcast platforms that we are currently hosted on. You can also leave us a voice message on Anchor. And just in case you can't find it on the Linktree, that's anchor.fm/idiot-book-nook. Yes, Kat, hi. With that being said, my cat is meowing at the door, and she has a habit where she will not, she won't stop until I chase her away, so just give me one quick sec if you two would like to keep everybody entertained for a moment.
Okay.
Does anyone know if Jonathan Stroud has a TikTok?
I don't think he does, but it doesn't hurt to look.
One moment.
As we both get out our phones to look.
Stop. Okay, please. I love you. Stop.
I didn't know.
It does not look like.
Okay, sorry about that. With that
Checking to see if Jonathan Stroud has a TikTok.
Oh,
Yeah.
fascinating.
There are a lot of TikToks about him. However, it doesn't look like he himself has a TikTok. It looks like, though, that there's a lot of stuff talking about Lockwood and Company.
Okay.
It might be
that's another
one
one
of
of
his
his
more
books.
recent series.
Might be something we have to check out and add to our list.
Yes, especially since there's going to be a Netflix adaptation to it.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, with that being
We
said,
can judge it.
we are going... You what?
We can judge it.
With that being said, this is episode 35 of the Idiot Book Nook. We are 15 episodes away from our 50th episode. This is chapter 19 of the Amulet of Samarkand, the first book of the Bartimaeus Trilogy. Narrator, are you ready?
Just about. Hold up.
One moment while thumpa type. Also, for those of you that are listening to this, you probably won't be seeing this for a bit, but happy Pride Month.
Yeah, happy Pride Month. I'm in my rainbows.
You are in rainbows. Narrator, are you ready?
Get out of this so that way we're not disturbed. And let me get the
I mean,
book back
we're
out.
we're already disturbed.
I'm trying to not disturb us at any more than we already have. Thank you.
I meant we're disturbed.
Yes, we are.
Okay, just so long as we have that clear.
Yes.
Okay. Anyways, are you ready for chapter 19?
Yes.
Let her rip.
Alrighty. Yes. Yeah.
Provided it is not an already established voice, I'm going to give Lady Punnet first choice for this chapter. So I usually jump in, but...
The Bartimaeus Trilogy, Book 1, The Amulet of Samarkand, written by Jonathan Stroud, narrated by the Reading Dragon, voice acted by the Reading Dragon, Blazewing 2010, and Lady Punnet.
Scammerman!
Scammerman! I'm the Scammerman! God damn it. Oh, God. Chapter 19. They walked beside an endless row of glittering black cars toward a pair of metal doors. By this time, Nathaniel's anticipation was such that he could hardly focus on anything at all. He was so distracted that he scarcely took in the two slim guards who stopped them beside the doors, or noticed his master produce 3 plastic passes, which were inspected and returned. He barely registered the oak-paneled lift that they entered, or the tiny red sphere observing them from the ceiling. And it was only when the lift doors opened and they stepped out into the splendor of Westminster Hall that, with a rush, his senses returned to him. It was a vast space, wide and open under a steeply pitched ceiling of age-blackened beams. The walls and floors were made of giant smoothed blocks of stone. The windows were ornate arches filled with intricate stained glass. At the far end, a multitude of doors and windows opened onto a terrace overlooking the river. Yellow lanterns hung from the roof and projected from the walls on metal braziers. Perhaps 200 people already stood or strolled about the hall, but they were so engulfed by the great expanse, it seemed the place was almost empty. Nathaniel swallowed hard. He felt himself reduced to sudden insignificance. He stood beside Mr. and Mrs. Underwood at the top of a flight of steps that swept down into the hall. A black-suited servant glided forward and retreated with his master's coat. Another gestured politely, and they set off down the stairs. An object to the side caught his eye. A dull gray statue. A crouching boy dressed in strange clothes, looking up with wide eyes and holding a boot scraper in his hands. Although age had long since worn away the finer details of the face, it still had a curiously imploring look that made Nathaniel's skin crawl. He hurried onward, careful not to get too close to his master's heels. At the foot of the steps, they paused. Servants approached bearing glasses of champagne, which Nathaniel wanted, and lime cordial, which he didn't but received. Mr. Underwood took a long swig from his glass and flicked his eyes anxiously to and fro. Mrs. Underwood gazed about her with a vague, dreamy smile. Nathaniel drank some cordial and looked around. Magicians of every age milled about, talking and laughing. The hall was a blur of black suits and elegant dresses, of white teeth flashing and jewels sparkling under the lantern light. A few hard-faced men wearing identical gray jackets lounged near each exit. Nathaniel guessed they were police or magicians on security duty, ready to call up Jin at the slightest hint of trouble. But even through his lenses, he could spot no magical entities currently present in the room. He did, however, notice several strutting youths and straight-backed girls who were evidently apprentices like himself. Without exception, they were chatting confidently to other guests, all very much at ease. Nathaniel suddenly became acutely conscious of how awkwardly his master and Mrs. Underwood were standing, isolated and alone. Gee, I wonder fucking why.
Oughtn't we talk to someone?
He ventured. Mr. Underwood flashed him a venomous look.
I thought I told you.
He broke off and hailed a fat man who had just come down the steps.
Grigory!
God damn it. Grigori didn't seem particularly thrilled.
Oh. Hello, Underwood.
Oh, he's not very liked.
How delightful to see you.
Mr. Underwood stepped across to the man, practically pouncing on him in his eagerness to start a conversation. Mrs. Underwood and Nathaniel were left on their own.
Isn't he going to introduce us?
Nathaniel asked peevishly.
Don't worry, dear. It's important for your master to talk to the top people. We don't need to talk to anyone, do we? But we can still watch, which is always a pleasure.
She tutted a little.
I must say the style this year's are so conservative.
Is the Prime Minister here, Mrs. Underwood?
She craned her neck.
I don't think so, dear. No, not yet. But that's Mr. Duval, the Chief of Police.
A short distance away, an elderly man in grey uniform stood to two young women, who seemed to be talking animatedly to him at the same time.
I met him once, such a charming gentleman, and very powerful, of course. Let me see, who else? Goodness. Yes! You see that lady there?
Nathaniel did. She was startlingly thin, with cropped white hair. Her fingers clasped the stem of her glass like the clenched talons of a bird.
Jessica Whitwell. She's something to do with security. A very celebrated magician. She was the one who caught the infiltrators. Infiltrators 10 years ago.
Like Czechoslovakia.
They raised a mard and set it on her, but she created a void and sucked it in. All on her own she did that, and with minimal loss of life. So don't cross her when you're older, John.
She laughed and drained her glass. Instantly, a serpent appeared at her shoulder and refilled it almost to the brim. Nathaniel laughed too. As often happened in her company, he found some of Mrs. Underwood's serenity rubbing off on him. He relaxed a little. Excuse me, the Duke and Duchess of Westminster. A pair of liveried servants hustled past. Nathaniel was pushed unceremoniously to one side. A small, shrewish woman wearing a frumpy black dress, a gold anklet, and an imperious expression elbowed her way through the throng. An exhausted-looking man followed in her wake. Mrs. Underwood looked after them, marveling.
What a hideous woman she is. I can't think what the Duke sees in her.
She took another sip of champagne.
And that there. Good heavens, what has befallen him? Is that merchant Solto Pin?
Nathaniel observed a great fat man wearing a white linen suit come hobbling down the steps, supporting himself on a pair of crutches. He moved as if it gave him great pain to do so. His face was covered with bruises. One eye was black and closed. Two men servants hovered about him, clearing his way towards some chairs set against the wall.
He doesn't look too well,
Nathaniel said.
No, indeed. Some dreadful accident. Perhaps some artifact went wrong. Poor man.
Bolstered by her champagne, Mrs. Underwood continued to give Nathaniel a running guide to many of the great men and women arriving in the hall. It was the cream of government and society. The most influential people in London, and that of course meant the world. As she expanded on their most famous feats, Nathaniel became ever more gloomily aware how peripheral he was to all this glamour and power. The self-satisfied feeling that had warmed him briefly in the car, was now forgotten, replaced instead by a gnawing frustration. He caught sight of his master again several times, always standing on the fingertips of a group, always barely tolerated or ignored. Ever since the Lovelace incident, he had known how ineffectual Underwood was. Here was yet more proof. All his colleagues knew the man was weak. Nathaniel ground his teeth with anger. To be the despised apprentice of a despised magician. This wasn't the start in life that he wanted or deserved. Mr. Underwood jerked his arm urgently.
There, John. Do you see him? That's him. That's him.
I meant to say Mrs. Underwood.
I would hope so.
Mrs. Underwood jerked his arm urgently. Okay, there we go.
There, John. Do you see him? That's him. That's him.
Who?
Okay, someone tell me how I pronounce
Devereux.
the last name.
Devereux.
Rupert Devereux, the Prime Minister.
I had dropped something and I needed to pick it up.
Yep.
Where he had come from, Nathaniel had no idea. But there suddenly he was. A small, slim man with light brown hair, standing at the center of a scrummage of competing dinner jackets and cocktail dresses, yet miraculously occupying a solitary point of grace and calm. He was listening to someone, nodding his head and smiling slightly. The Prime Minister, the most powerful man in Britain, perhaps the world. Even at a distance, Nathaniel experienced a warm glow of admiration. He wanted nothing more than to get close and watch him, to listen to him speak. He sensed that the whole room felt as he did, that behind the surface of each conversation, everyone's senses were angled in that one direction. But even as he began to stare, the crowd closed in, and the slender, dapper figure was hidden from his view. Reluctantly, Nathaniel turned away. He took a resigned sip of his cordial and froze. Near the foot of the staircase, two magicians stood, almost alone of all of the guests in that vicinity. They were taking no interest in the prime ministerial throng. They talked animatedly, heads close together. Nathaniel took a deep breath. He knew them both, indeed. Their faces had been imprinted on his memory since his humiliation the year before. The old man with the florid, wrinkled skin, more withered and bent than ever. The younger man with the clammy complexion, his lank hair draping down over his collar. Lovelace's friends. And if they were present, would Lovelace himself be far away? An uncomfortable prickling broke out in Nathaniel's stomach, a feeling of weakness that annoyed him greatly. He licked his dry lips. Calm down. There was nothing to fear. Lovelace had no way of tracing the amulet to him, even if they met to face. His searchers would actually have to enter Underwood's house before they could detect its aura. He was safe enough. No, he should seize this opportunity like any good. He should seize this opportunity like any good magician. If he drew close to his enemies, he might overhear what they had to say. He glanced around. Mrs. Underwood's attention had been diverted. She was in conversation with a short, squat gentleman and had just broken into squeals of laughter. Nathaniel began to sidle through the crowd on a trajectory that would bring him around to the shadows of the staircase, not far from where the two magicians stood. Halfway across, he saw the old man break off in mid-sentence and look up toward the entrance gallery. Nathaniel followed his gaze. His heart jolted. There he was, Simon Lovelace, red-faced and out of breath. Evidently, he had only just arrived. He removed his overcoat in a flurry and tossed it to a servant, before adjusting the lapels of his jacket and hurrying for the stairs. His appearance was just how Nathaniel remembered it. The glasses, the hair slicked back, the energy of movement, the broad mouth flicking a smile on off at everyone he passed. He trotted down the steps briskly, spurning the champagne that was offered him, making for his friends. Nathaniel speeded up. In a few seconds he had reached an empty patch of floor beside one sweeping banister of the staircase. He was now not far from the foot of the stairs, close to where the end of the banister curled around to form an ornate plinth, topped with a stone vase. Behind one side of the base, he glimpsed the back of the clammy magician's head. Behind the other, part of the old man's jacket. Lovelace himself had now descended the staircase to join them, and was out of view. The vase shielded Nathaniel from their sight. He eased himself against the rear of the plinth, and leaned against it in what he hoped was a debonair fashion. Then he strained to distinguish their voices from the hubbub all around. Success. Lovelace himself was speaking, his voice harsh and irritable.
No luck whatsoever. Wait, is this Lovelace?
Yes.
Who does Lovelace? Is that me?
I believe that was you.
Okay. No luck whatsoever. I tried every document possible. Nothing I've summoned can tell me who controls it.
You've been wasting your time.
It was the thick accent of the older man.
How should the other demons know?
It's not my habit to leave any possibility untried. But no, you're right. The spears have been useless too. Though perhaps we have to change our plans. You got my message? I think we should cancel.
Cancel? A third voice, presumably the clammy man's.
I can always blame the girl.
I don't think that would be wise.
The old man spoke softly. Nathaniel could barely hear the words.
Devereaux would be down on you even more if you cancelled. He's looking forward to all the little luxuries you've promised to provide. No, Simon, we have to put on a brave face on it. Keep searching. We've got a few days. It may yet turn up.
It'll ruin me if it all for nothing. Do you know how much that room costs?
Calm down. You're raising your voice.
All right, but you know what I can't stand? Whoever did it is here, somewhere, watching me, laughing at me. When I discover who,
Keep your voice down, Lovelace. The clammy man again. Perhaps, Simon, we should go somewhere a little more discreet. Behind the plinth, Nathaniel jerked himself backward, as if propelled by an electric charge. They were moving off. It would not do to come face to face with them here. Without pausing, he sidestepped away from the shadow of the staircase and took a few steps into the crowd. Once he had got far enough away to be safe, he looked back. Lovelace and his companions had scarcely moved. An elderly magician had imposed herself on their company and was jabbering away, to their vast impatience.
So
Nathaniel.
Handsome.
What?
Sorry.
Oh,
I misread. Sorry.
Oh. Nathaniel took a sip of his drink and composed himself. He had not understood all he had heard, but Lovelace's fury was pleasingly evident. To find out more, he would have to summon Bartimaeus. Perhaps his slave was even here right now, trailing Lovelace. Nothing showed up in his lenses, admittedly, but the genie would have changed its form on each of the first 4 planes. Any one of these seemingly solid people might be a shell, concealing the demon within. He stood, lost in thought for a time, at the edge of a small group of magicians. Gradually, their conversation broke in on him.
So handsome. Is he attached?
Simon Lovelace? Some woman. I don't recall her name.
You want to stick clear of him, Davina. He's no longer the golden boy.
He's holding the conference next week, isn't he? And he's so good-looking.
He had to suck up to Devereaux long and hard for that. No, his career's going nowhere fast.
The PM sidelined him. Lovelace tried for the Home Office a year ago, but Duval blocked it. Hates him. Can't recall why.
Duval's got the PM's ear, after all.
That's old Schuyler with Lovelace, isn't it? Whatever did he summon to get a face like that? I've seen better-looking imps.
Lovelace chooses curious company for a minister, I'll say that much. Who's that greasy one?
Lime, I think. Agriculture.
He's a queer fish.
Where's this conference taking place anyway?
Some godforsaken place outside London.
Oh no, really? How desperately tedious. Well, we'll probably all be pitchforked by men in smocks.
Well, if that's what the PM wants.
Dreadful.
So handsome, though.
John. Oh, sorry.
I think that's Miss Underwood. John!
Okay.
You are shallow, Davina, mind you. I'd like to know where he got that suit.
Jean!
Mrs. Underwood, her face flushed, perhaps with the heat of the room, materialized in front of Nathaniel. She grabbed his arm.
Jean, I've been calling and calling. Mr. Devereaux's about to make his speech. We need to go to the back. Minister is only at the front. Hurry up.
They slipped to the side as, with a clopping of heels and a shuffling of gowns, a vigorous herd instinct moved the guests toward a small stage, draped with purple cloth that had wheeled in from a side room. Nathaniel and Mrs. Underwood were buffeted uncomfortably in the general rush, and ended up at the back and to the side of the assembled audience, near the doors that opened out onto the river terrace. The number of guests had swelled considerably since they had arrived. Nathaniel estimated there were now several hundred contained within the hall. If you want, I can take this one.
You have another line yet?
Yeah, it's with a youthful spring.
Oh, with a youthful spring, Rupert Devereaux bounded up onto the stage.
Who wants to be the Prime Minister?
I can take it. Or do you want to take it? Who wants to take it?
Rock, paper, scissors for it.
I can.
Yeah, you too.
I got it.
Okay.
Ladies, gentlemen, ministers, how glad I am to see you here this evening.
He had an attractive voice, deep but lilting, full of casual command. A spontaneous round of cheers and clapping broke out. Mrs. Underwood nearly dropped her champagne glass in her excitement. By her side, Nathaniel applauded enthusiastically.
Giving a state address is always a particularly pleasant task for me.
Devereaux continued,
requiring as it does that I be surrounded by so many wonderful people.
More whoops and cheers erupted, fairly shaking the rafters of the ancient hall.
Thank you. Today, I am pleased to report success on all fronts, both at home and abroad. I shall go into more detail in a moment, but I can announce that our armies have fought the Italian rebels to a stalemate near Turin, and have bunkered down for the winter. In addition, our Alpine battalions have annihilated a Czech expeditionary force.
For a moment, his voice was drowned out in the general applause.
And destroyed a number of their jinn.
He paused.
On the home front, concern has been expressed again about another outbreak of petty pilfering in London. A number of magical artifacts have been reported stolen in the last few weeks alone. Now, we all know that these are the actions of a handful of traitors, small-time ne'er-do-wells of no consequence. However, if we do not stamp it out, other commoners may follow their lead like the brainless cattle they are. We will, therefore, take draconian measures to halt this vandalism. All suspected subversives will be detained without trial. I feel sure that with this extra power, Internal Affairs will soon have the ringleaders safely in custody.
The state address continued for many minutes, liberally punctuated with explosions of joy from the assembled crowd. What little substance it contained soon degenerated into a mass of repetitive platitudes about the virtues of the government and the wickedness of its enemies. After a time, Nathaniel grew bored. He could almost feel his brain turning to jelly as he strove to listen. Finally, he gave up trying altogether and looked about him. By half-turning, he could see through an open door onto the terrace. The black waters of the Thames stretched beyond the marble balustrade, picked out here and there by reflections of the yellow lights from the south side. The river was at its height, flowing away to the left under Westminster Bridge toward the docklands and the sea. Someone else had evidently decided the speech was too tedious to bear, and had actually stepped out onto the terrace. Nathaniel could see him standing just beyond the well of light that spilled out from the hall. It was a reckless guest, indeed, who so blatantly ignored the Prime Minister. More probably it was just a security official. Nathaniel's mind wandered. He imagined the ooze at the bottom of the Thames. Bartimaeus's tin would be half buried now, lost forever in the rushing darkness. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed the man on the terrace make a sudden decisive movement, as if he had drawn something large out from under his coat or jacket. Nathaniel tried to focus, but the figure was shrouded in darkness. Behind him, he could hear the Prime Minister's
Mellifluous
voice still sounding.
This is an age of consolidation, my friends. We are the greatest magical elite on Earth. Nothing is beyond us.
The figure stepped forward toward the door. Nathaniel's lenses logged a flash of color within the darkness. Something not entirely on one plane.
We must follow the example of our ancestors and strive.
In doubt, Nathaniel tried to speak, but his tongue was furred to the roof of his mouth. The figure leaped through into the hall, a youth with wild, dark eyes. He wore black jeans, a black anorak. His face was smeared with some dark oil or paste. In his hands was a bright blue sphere, the size of a large grapefruit. It pulsated with light. Nathaniel could see tiny white objects swirling within it, round and round and round.
For further domination, our enemies are wilting.
The youth raised his arm. The sphere glinted in the lantern light. A gasp from within the crowd. Someone noticing.
Yes, I say to you again.
Nathaniel's mouth opened in a soundless cry. The arm jerked forward. The sphere left the hand.
They are uniting.
The blue sphere... Really, it says wilting again.
Hang on.
Or it says they are uniting, they are wilting. At least in my copy.
On my copy it
The
says...
blue sphere arced in the air over Nathaniel's head.
Yeah, but before that, the arm jerked forward, the sphere left the hand. They are wilting.
They are wilting.
Okay. Sorry. The blue sphere arced into the air over Nathaniel's head, over the heads of the crowd. To Nathaniel, transfixed by its movement, like a mouse mazed by the swaying of a snake, its trajectory seemed to take forever. All signs ceased in the hall. All sounds ceased in the hall, except for a barely discernible fizzing from the sphere, and from the crowd, the gulped, high-pitched beginnings of a woman's scream. The sphere disappeared over the heads of the crowd. Then came the tinkle of breaking glass. And, a split second later, the explosion.
And thus ends Chapter 19 of The Amulet of Samarkand. So, folks, what have we got?
It wasn't Nathaniel's fault.
Not this time, it wasn't.
So we have an assassination attempt.
Possibly, yeah.
Or it could just be a prank gone horribly wrong.
$5 says Nathaniel's gonna get blamed for it anyway.
How?
Are you doubting Underwood's ability to blame Nathaniel for shit?
Yes, but I'm saying I don't think he's going to blame him when he's there, because that would look bad on him. Because let's face it, he's an apprentice. He's not worth anything right now.
He's
And
also...
if anything, they could say, oh, so you told your apprentice to assassinate the Prime Minister?
That's true.
Well, I mean, it's also not the first time that Underwood has misjudged Nathaniel's intentions. Nathaniel was slighted before by Lovelace and his friends, and he tried to get payback, and he was smacked down. And then Underwood took it out on Nathaniel.
Yep.
I don't see Underwood trying to blame Nathaniel for this.
I have no love for the man. I'm sorry.
I know you have no love for the man, but here's the thing. To his knowledge, Nathaniel's a weakling apprentice. He wouldn't be able to conjure up something that destructive by himself.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. What else have we got?
There's the part where it seems as though while Bartimaeus is dealing with whatever the fuck it is he's dealing with Mr. Hooves, everyone else that he's affected so far is having a grand old time, so to speak.
Yeah.
Including the big polar bear man.
Lovelace. You're talking about Pin?
Yeah.
I think that's his name.
Shotel.
Yeah, I think his name's Pin. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, Pin Shotel.
Shotel Pin.
Yeah, I mean, bruised, bloody, broken. But then there's Lovelace discussing things out in the open
Yeah.
instead of behind doors.
Yeah.
I smell a plot device!
Plot devices.
What if it's Bartimaeus disguising himself as Lovelace?
Bartimaeus has been held captive, though.
Yes, but
What
we
if
don't
he
know if he escaped before that.
That's true.
Because
But-
we have been shown how timelines are kind of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
Fair.
Like in our campaign for D&D.
Fair. But I would like to point something out. He was rendered unconscious outside of Pin's shop, his accoutrement shop. And just before he went unconscious, we saw a figure with hooves.
Yep.
Maybe it was his boss.
Hey, old boss. How's it going?
Now, in Nathaniel's perspective, after that whole thing with getting his naming taken care of, it was the same day that Nathaniel had given that order to Bartimaeus.
Mm-hmm.
And that same day was when Bartimaeus went out to do that whole mission thing and got in that whole kerfuffle. That all happened on the same day, whereas after what happened at the end of Bartimaeus' perspective, before we get into Nathaniel's perspective, which we just read, Nathaniel had been sick for about 3 days after. So
In
there's
those
a
3 days, Bartimaeus could have escaped. He is a
Yep.
powerful demon, apparently.
Yes, powerful trickster demon, specifically.
So the next chapter is Nathaniel as well. We do not run into Bartimaeus again until chapter 21.
Shit. When we practically get halfway to the book.
Yeah. Another 2 chapters and we are halfway through the book, because 44 chapters, right?
Yep. And that means 22 is the halfway point.
Yep.
Yep.
We are, however, going to reach our episode 50 before we reach the end of this book. So,
Yep.
yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Exciting.
What episode is this now?
This is, I believe, 35?
34, 35, whichever.
And 33 we started off with, 34 and 35. Yeah, this would be 35. So, do we have anything else?
I don't think so. We now have confirmation that females can become magicians,
Yes.
and that there were female magicians there who were apprentice magicians who were confidently talking with people, which continues to prove that Nathaniel has not been properly socialized. But also would like to point out that girls are typically more social creatures than boys. Typically, I say typically. So depending on who their masters are, maybe the masters were like, we need to socialize these kids, otherwise they're going to become sociopaths.
They're gonna end up like Underwood's kid.
Nathaniel? Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't want them to become like Nathaniel.
They fucking use Nathaniel as an example for everything of what not to do!
Yep.
You see that kid over there? The one that's not talking to anybody and sticking close to the wife? Don't be like him.
Yep.
Don't...
Socialize. Talk to each other. Dance if you must.
Like Rick and Morty with the expression, don't be a Jerry, don't be a Nathaniel.
Don't be a Nate.
God damn it. Though I do feel bad for Nathaniel because he is a product of his upbringing, so...
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Poor guy.
This poor boy.
It's a shame we don't get to see the teacher again.
I mean, he could have died. Because here's the thing, we don't know if it was that grenade thing was directed at the Prime Minister or all the ministers in the front, because it was described all the ministers have to be in the front.
Yep.
It could have literally just been like, someone down with the government!
Interesting. More and more questions.
Which, by the way, really bad design to have all of your important people in like one AoE
Yep.
of like area.
Yep.
It's kind of like with the closest real world example I can think of is like how with the President of the United States, they always leave at least one person in office if all of them have to go someplace in case something goes horribly wrong. There was actually a TV series about this. I think it was like Last Man Standing, or like basically it was like some guy who was like head of security or something or other. Not very important schmo was left behind at the White House, and the plane that was carrying all the important people went down, so he was left, so he became president.
Oh.
Well,
Because of
damn.
the law.
Well, damn.
So,
And he didn't want to be, but he kind of had to be.
So in American government, there is a line of succession in case the actual elected president ends up either passing on or something happens and the current elected president has to step down. It's the vice president, and then, actually, let me pull up that list here real quick.
I think it goes president, vice president, and then secretary general?
Yeah, presidential.
And that's like head of the different departments, like head of security,
Yeah.
head of
It'll-
military forces.
It'll go to the head, and then I believe after them it goes to your speaker.
I'm looking it up.
And then it starts filtering down through the layers. But don't quote me on that. I'm not well versed in U.S. politics.
Yeah, no. Current order of succession.
Designated Survivor. That was the name of the TV series where a lower level cabinet member Tom Crickland never imagined something would happen that would catapult him into the Oval Office when a devastating attack on the night of the State of the Union address claims the lives of the president and most of the cabinet members. The House and Urban Development Secretary, who is named the designated survivor in case of an event, finds himself promoted to the leader of the free world.
So, the current order of succession. The current presidential order of succession was established by the Presidential Succession Act of 1947, as amended. The order consists of congressional officers, followed by the members of the cabinet in order of the establishment of each department, provided that each officer must satisfy the constitutional requirements for serving as president. In the table, the absence of a number of the first column indicates that the incumbent is ineligible. Incumbent is ineligible. So after the president, there is the vice president. Then there is Speaker of the House of Representatives. Then there is President pro tempore of the Senate, Secretary of State, Secretary of the Treasury, Secretary of Defense, Attorney General, Secretary of the Interior, Secretary of Agriculture, Secretary of Commerce, Secretary of Labor, Secretary of Health and Human Services, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Secretary of Transportation, Secretary of Energy, Secretary of Education, Secretary of Veterans Affairs, and Secretary of Homeland Security. Yep. There is a list of 17 people after the president.
Well, damn.
Take on the roll until another president is elected.
Well, damn.
Yep. But it has to go to the vice president first and then make its way down, depending.
Well.
So if that show is about the last dude available, that means he might have been Secretary of Homeland Security. If they did their research correctly.
Well, this conversation has been illuminating. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That being said, we are going to bring this chapter to a close. Just bear with me while we close out. We here at the Idiot Book Nook would like to thank you for joining us for episode 35 today. We have gone through chapter 19 of the Amulet of Samarkand, the first book in the Bartimaeus Trilogy. We hope you have enjoyed it. If you would like to follow us on social media, you can do so at linktr.ee/idiotbooknook, where you will find links for Blazewing, for the Reading Dragon, and for Lady Punnet. You'll also find a link to our website, and you will find links to our podcast feeds wherever they may be. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail message, you can do so at anchor.fm/idiot-book-nook. And again, for episode 35, I'm Blazewing.
I am the Reading Dragon.
I'm Lady Punnet.
And we'll see you in episode 36.
Bye.
God damn it, guys. Okay, so, with that, I am tired. I am tired. I am thinking we should cut the stream off here. We did get a good 3 chapters today, though, so congratulations on that. Lady Punnet, you said you are not going to be around next week.
No, I have a work.
Okay. Yeah. Which means we can either do a Q&A session, Reading Dragon, or we can do our visual novel.
We could.
But we can discuss that off air.
Yeah.
So! Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
For those of you watching on Twitch, thank you so much for joining us for yet another shit show of... a shit show telling of the Amulet of Samarkand. We appreciate you all. We're going to go see if there's anybody out there that we want to raid today. I can't guarantee that there is, but let's go take a look. I don't know how many people are still kicking around or anything like that, so...
There's at least me and one other person. Probably okay. It's Jay.
I have no idea.
Uh,
Alright, so once we log off here, I'm going to go take a stretch break, and I'll be back in a few moments. But for the rest of you, again, thank you very much for joining us. I will see you guys on Sunday for the Debauchery Tea Party shenanigans. And then again, I'll see you guys next Wednesday for the next installment of the Idiot Book Nook, whatever we decide to do. Happy Pride to you all. It is officially the beginning of Pride Month, and if you are part of my Discord, which, one moment...
It's at least Pride Month for Americans. I was told that Pride Month for Canada is July.
Well, whatever. Happy Pride Month. Either way, if you are part of my Discord, you have new black butterfly pride emojis that you can use, covering a whole host of different flags. And I'm going to be working hopefully on some others.
I would consider today being the first day of Pride season. Happy Pride season!
Happy Pride season.
If you are part of my Patreon, you'll also get a copy of the emojis as my way of saying thank you. You can use those for whatever. We're going to close out. We're not going to rate anybody.
There's like a whole lot of people on it.
Yeah. Wednesday is always a great day for that, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's great for like the chill streams, and then for those that are not really doing any streams that day. So it's like, hey, more room for us.
All right. Well, that'll be it. See you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye. Oh.